Thank you for joining us today for How to Engage with Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month, and we're going to get started in just a few minutes. We should have some like quiet music for you all while we're waiting. I know, we'll just do like a virtual dance. Thank you. Shout out to Tracy. Thank you for that. We got a few people coming in the room. I'll get started with an introduction and then we'll get going as people are coming in the room. Thank you all and welcome to our California for the Arts How to Engage in Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month 2024 training. We're really excited to have you all here. Thank you for joining us. I'm Nefeshi Israel. I'm the Director of Programs, and our entire team is thankful for this moment to share about ACCM. A lot of our team are on the call, and they will join us. They will start speaking as their time comes, and they're sharing some of the slides. They'll be able to share. And we have our team also in the chat. So if you would like, please feel free to share your name. You can share your pronouns, where you're logging in from, maybe your organization you work with. And if you're a board member, we do want to shout out to our board members because we may have some board members in the room. So please feel free to do a virtual hand raise, or you can do it on the screen, whatever works for you, or just in the chat to share that you're a board member. And we thank you for joining us also. We're excited for everyone to join this training. This is going to be a guide designed specifically for ACCM 2024. Throughout this program, you're going to gain valuable insights and practical tools to effectively engage in promoting arts, culture, and creativity in your communities. Our training serves as your comprehensive training guide for ACCM, covering everything from user-friendly weekly social media posts, template proclamations, op-eds, and press releases to artist engagements, weekly webinars, and a detailed overview of our legislative and administrative requests for supporting public investment in arts and culture this year. So thank you for joining us, and we are going to get started with our slides. And again, please introduce yourselves in the chat, put any questions in the Q&A that you may have throughout the time, and we're going to come back for our Q&A throughout this session. So please feel free to drop questions in the chat and we'll make sure to answer them. All right, let's go ahead to that next slide there. So our agenda for today, we're going to be going through, of course, we just did the welcome. This is our agenda. We're going to talk about ACCM. What is Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month? And then our theme for this year, which is Artwork is Real Work. You're going to see that all over for the next month and hopefully going into this whole year, just celebrating the fact that artwork is real work. We have toolkits and resources to amplify ACCM. We're going to talk about advocacy opportunities, and then, of course, closing remarks and a Q&A. Like I said, at the end, the Q&A will happen. So please feel free to drop your questions in the chat as we're going. All right, next slide.
Just one brief correction there. Please put your questions in the Q&A so that way we can keep them ordered easily as opposed to in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Terry. We knew we were going to get Terry to talk at some point. Thank you so much. So Q&A, drop your questions in the Q&A, not in the chat for clarity. Thank you so much. So your host for ACCM, Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month 2024. We have California Arts Advocates. If you're familiar, we have two sister organizations, kind of partnering organizations. One is a lobbying organization, and it's a C4. That's CA Arts Advocates. And then we have CA for the Arts. And shout out to our whole team, specifically our comms team and our for the rebrand that we had happen this year. So if you saw last year and then coming into this year, you might see it looks a little bit different. That's because we had a full rebrand in January and it looks amazing. So thank you. CA for the Arts, that's our 501c3 organization, and we do advocacy services throughout the state. We create tools, we communicate, we convene with the field. And this year we have some upcoming events that we want to highlight right below that bar there where it's ACCM. That's the full month of April. We'll be celebrating throughout the state, and hopefully you'll celebrate in your local communities and cities. And then we have press launches, Santa Monica on March 30th. So if you're in the area, please come through. And then San Diego on April 5th. And some two core key events that we have for ACCM are our second annual California Arts and Culture Summit on April 16th, and then we have Advocacy Day at the Capitol. And we're going to talk more about all of this throughout this time. So you can go to the next slide, please. All right, so here you can see, this is part of our toolkit. What is Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month? This is started in 2019 that this became a concurrent resolution in California. We were able to work to make this something that we can celebrate, a month that we can celebrate the arts, culture, and creativity here in our state, as well as advocate for arts and culture throughout our state. So here on the side, you're going to see and also thank you, Terry, for dropping that link in the chat. If you pay attention throughout the slideshow, you're going to see links in the chat just to be able to access all of this information. And the other thing that I wanted to make sure we said was that all these slides you'll be able to access. We'll send them over to you after this presentation. So this is a part of our toolkit, and I have to move things around on my screen so I can see the whole screen. The month of April is our time to celebrate. As I said, is we recognize and advocate for the significant impact that the arts makes in California. And you'll see our hashtags that we'll be using throughout the month. And we're going to dive into some of our proclamations, op-eds, and special events that we have throughout the month. You can go to the next slide, please. All right, in Sacramento, I mentioned these in the earlier slide. In Sacramento, we're going to have an amazing time. We have such an incredible lineup for the Arts and Culture Summit on April 16th. If you have not gotten your tickets already, then definitely go to the link that's in the chat and you can learn more information about our upcoming summit, along with our Arts Advocacy Day. The summit does come at a cost, but Arts Advocacy Day is free to anyone that can be at the Capitol in Sacramento on April 17th. And we would love to have you there for the rally at 9 a.m. And then we're going to be doing some work speaking with legislators and policymakers in Sacramento. And Tracy will talk more about that in a little bit. So let's go ahead to that next slide. All right, and this is Nataki Garrett is our keynote speaker. And if you have not heard of Nataki is an incredible woman. She is an arts leader. She will set the tone with our keynote as our keynote speaker. She's the CEO and executive director for the Ladder Approach, which is an executive coaching organization. And she's the co-artistic director for One Nation, One Project, spearheading the National Arts and Health Initiative, Arts for Everybody. So we are really looking forward to having Nataki speak. And she's someone that if you have not heard of her, check her out. And hopefully you'll be able to see her give her keynote address at our summit on April 16th. You can go to the next slide, please. Cool. All right. And here you see our great graphic, Artwork is Real Work. Like I said, you're going to see this throughout the next month. At Advocacy Day, we'll have some signs up stating artwork is real work and remembering that artwork truly is real work. If you see on the white box there, we've got panelists and workshop leaders in the chat probably already. We have a schedule of programs, and you're going to see all of these different panelists will be speaking about a variety of topics that we'll get into in one of the next slides. And then our workshop leaders, we have some innovative, revolutionary, and new workshop workshops this summit. And Tasha Golden, I'll point out, she will be doing one of her first workshops on arts and health and arts on prescription, which is going to be something that we're all really looking forward to learn more about as we work on implementing that in our state. You can go to the next slide, please. Hopefully you see some names that you're familiar with there. Here is just a breakdown of our summit panels and workshops. We have Arts and Health, as I mentioned, Tasha Golden, but also Deborah Cullinan from Stanford, and then Chris Appleton from Art Pharmacy. I'm not going to go through all of the names, but those are some really highlights that we're really excited about. Then we have Artists on Artists' Work, Creative Conditions, which is going to be looking at the conditions of artists that are working. And like we said, artwork is real work. So we're looking at how does that really make up the whole ecosystem that we're working with. Arts and youth engagement is something we're excited about. Artisan housing or workspace. That's a really big conversation that a lot of you have probably been impacted by, are working towards to make it more affordable or more accessible. The power of posters and civic engagement. advocating for equitable arts education with Prop 28. That was something we talked about last year at our summit. We're bringing it back. Create California, some of their team is going to be speaking about Prop 28, how to be a part of the changes with the education system here in California and the arts that are being brought back to life in many ways in our schools here in California. Arts on Prescription, that was the panel or the workshop that I mentioned earlier, where Dr. Tasha Golden will be sharing Arts on Prescription, which is move you from the idea to action. So we really wanted to be intentional about making sure it wasn't just ideas and ideating, but thinking about how do we apply this work. And then the last two that we have at the bottom here are case making for collaboration, which Tracy will be leading. Is really excited about that. Tracy on our team, our field engagement director, and then building better bridges in the arts economy. And the last one is economic justice and community power building. So hopefully these panels really spark your interest and are probably things that you're working on, probably things that you've been thinking about throughout the year. And this will be a place of convening where we can network and we can really think of new ideas and ways that we can apply the lessons learned throughout this summit. All right, let's go to the next slide there. Thank you. We can play this video. This is a short little reel that we want to share with you. I don't know if there's sound there. Is sound coming through?
No.
No sound. All right. No worries. Well, we can see that there. It looks good. We can try it. No, no sound. There we go. California for the Arts presents the second annual California Arts and Culture Summit, taking place on April 16th, 2024. This year, our theme is Artwork is Real Work. We are diving deep into exploring how the arts, integrated across various sectors and industries, can be a catalyst for creative solutions. The California Arts and Culture Summit is proudly hosted by California for the Arts, your statewide arts advocacy organization. Don't miss out on this opportunity to be a part of a movement shaping the future of California through the lens of creativity and innovation. Tickets are still available. Secure yours today and invest in your professional growth. Join us for engaging panels, hands-on workshops, networking opportunities, and more. This is one of the few summits where the whole of the arts and culture ecosystem gather, from artists and culture bearers to administrators, public funders, researchers, and public policy analysts across various creative fields. Everyone convenes under one roof on one day. Together, we'll share ideas and strategies to drive systemic change that prioritizes arts, culture, and creativity for equity and justice. This Arts and Culture Summit is where creativity meets. So let's unite to harness the transformative power of the arts, envisioning a brighter tomorrow for California. All right, thank you. That was my best broadcasting voice. I've got some TV broadcasting friends, so I leaned on that. I hope you all enjoyed that little video, just giving a little bit of last year and what if you were there last year, you may have seen yourself or you may have brought up some memories. So hopefully you can join us this year for our second annual, and we look forward to many, many more of these summits. This summit is so unique in the sense that, like I said in the video, this is the one of the rare summits where the whole of the arts ecosystem is coming together, and that is really our goal, bringing everyone together, coming up with solutions and thinking about how are we shaping our future. So let's get into some of the proclamation toolkit, I believe is next. We're going to talk about some of the tools and resources that we have for you all for ACCM. All right, so we've got toolkits here, and you can see on the side, when you get these slides, these are all live links, but we'll also have links in the chat for some of this information. These are toolkits. We have proclamation guide. We're going to go through that next. We have an op-ed toolkit if you want to write an op-ed. We have our press release if you want to have a press release in your city. And then Zoom backgrounds. You see on our page, all of when we speak, you're going to see our backgrounds. I'm kind of pointing back, hopefully. You can see me there, but you have access to these fun Zoom backgrounds. So if you want to have these up for the month, then hopefully you'll take advantage of that. And then we have social media toolkits. And if you have been on our social media, check us out on Instagram. Our comms team is highly active on there, sharing a lot of content and information and continuing to let people know like what's happening with the panel discussions, who is our keynote speaker, what are our workshops, and just additional information we'll have on social media. And it always helps to get the likes, to get people commenting, and then also sharing out to your community. And it helps us spread the word, even if people are not coming to the summit, but maybe even for Advocacy Day, or just sharing out what's happening in arts and culture here in California. You can go to the next slide, please. All right, so this is Amplify ACCM, as we were just talking about. I'm not going to spend too much time on here, but those the toolkits give you information for writing the blog posts, doing your putting the logo on different things like an email, and then the proclamation for the arts within your local city or county officials. And you still have time if that's something that you would like to do within your city. You just have to get it done pretty soon, and you can potentially get a proclamation for your city. You can go to the next slide, please. All right, so we have Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month proclamations. We have a number of counties and cities across the state working on getting their local government to pass a proclamation celebrating the arts. If you have experience in this and you want to share your experience with someone else, or you want to share this out so that others have resources, then this is definitely a great tool to use, even as you're guiding others that might be interested in getting a proclamation in their city. I believe that was shared in the chat there's a form to fill out, and then we will send you that proclamation guide. All right, you can go to the next slide, please. All right, and this is the proclamation guide that you'll get after you fill out the form. It comes just like this. It has links out for more additional information if you're interested in actually reading the concurrent resolution from 2019 that's there. And in that, it talks about, or excuse me, in 2021, I want to make sure I get my dates right. 2021, an additional resolution was made to recognize artists as second responders, really helping and healing their communities. And this just gives a little bit more of a breakdown. And at the bottom, you'll see the form to let us know that your proclamation was approved. We'd like to track it and just know the effectiveness of being able to share these toolkits out to our community. Next slide, please. All right, so I am going to hand over my metaphoric microphone to our comms manager, Eddie.
Thank you so much, Nefesha.
Thank you.
So there's supposed to be an animated GIF playing here, but yes. So my name is Eduardo Robles, and I'm Senior Manager of Communications. My pronouns are he, him, and I am calling in from the unceded lands of Tongva and Chumash in the city of Los Angeles. And I am very happy to present another engagement tool, the social media engagement tool for ACCM. Next slide, please. So the social media toolkit is it's an engagement toolkit where we're messaging, the importance and value of investing in creative workers and creative solutions. So we have weekly posts that highlight the social and economic value of investing in creative workers and the creative industries. So we have thematic posts each week highlighting the work, the arts and culture work in climate change, in public health, in public education, and community building, and other impact areas. So it's very important that we activate the field. There's a lot of practitioners approaching art and culture from different areas of the sector. So we want to showcase that. We want to bring that aware. We want our legislative leaders to learn about that impactful work and the return of investments. There are investments in these kind of cross-sector areas, so we want to uplift that investment and that need to continue investing. So all of our weekly posts are highlighting that work and also demystifying the stereotype of the artist as a starving artist, or so we're really uplifting their role as a workforce and an industry in these social media posts. And just celebrating that throughout the month of Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month. So we invite you to download our toolkit and tag Governor Gavin Newsom, our new speaker Robert Rivas, our arts chairs and budget committee leaders who are stewarding a lot of these public resources and know about the value of arts and culture. We want to let them know that we are a sector that needs investment. And so the toolkit it's a tool to do that. So encourage your followers, other community arts organization or other arts organizations you're affiliated with. Invite them, to activate during ACCM and use these really fun visuals. So we try to use the affordances of design and messaging to really appeal to our message. We have hashtags that we want to be consistent with ACCM 2024. Our work is real work to really show our strengths in numbers. We have an op-ed with that already has a template, and you can add to it and submit it to your local press, to your own blogging platforms, and add the impact that you as an artist or an arts or culture organization are doing, and to highlight that work to the broader public. So those tools are ready for download and dissemination. And any questions, you can follow up with us, and we'll be happy to assist anyway. Next slide. So here's a sample of one of the weekly social media posts. This is the first post, and how we're approaching this idea of the artwork is real work. As you can see, some of the captions on the side start to talk about that cross-sector value of arts and culture as a tool for solutions. And so take a look, and use some of the language that we've drafted, use some of the graphics, and have fun with it. And more importantly, be consistent. We have like 5 to 7 posts. We have posters. We have stickers. We really want to uplift these messages. Next slide. Here's another weekly post. Here you see how artwork is cultural work, and it emphasizes the work of cultural organizations and ethnically specific organizations that are part of the sector. And each week goes into different parts of arts workers or the service of arts workers in cultural organizations. Next slide, please. And here you have an example of all of our different visual materials. This is arts workers are an essential workforce. That's a poster or a rally sign. You can print those. We have stickers. You can download and print the artworks. For climate work, artwork is cultural work. Artwork is broadly impactful, and we want to hone in on that message throughout April. So. That is our social media toolkit, and a vital tool during ACCM, and do encourage everyone to download it and have fun with it. And that'll be it for me. Next slide.
All right, before we move forward, just going to take a moment for some Q&A if there's any questions, and then we're going to get into a bit more about our advocacy day. And as you see there, if there's any questions that we don't get answered or that other questions, you can email me or one of our team members, and we'll definitely get back to you. Does our team see any questions in the Q&A?
No.
I don't see any just yet.
I have a question. Is it since really the toolkits and the op-ed and the press release is really about changing the conversation about how arts, culture, creativity, and the workforce are valued, Can folks post pictures of their own artwork and then use the hashtags artwork is real work and and ACCM, and just to kind of be connected? Will that make what they're doing more visible as well?
Actually, that's a good question for Eddie. Eduardo, I'll pass over to him.
Yeah, I mean, definitely don't be limited to our toolkit. The hashtag, if you're in front of a work of art or a performance, and it's speaking to these impacts, that would be great. Yes, use the hashtag, tag us, and yeah, we really want to put a face to all of these initiatives and programs that we experience in California.
Thank you. I see that Sarah Martin wrote, will there be events in Los Angeles for April Art Month? I'm going to open it up for our team to chime in, but also if you have events coming up in April for Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month, or you plan on celebrating it, even though you didn't specifically set it apart and say this is for ACCM, but you want to highlight ACCM, then feel free to add that into the chat also. The chat will be a good feature for that, I believe, right? CA for the arts team.
Yes, you can put other events into the chat. There's also another question in the Q&A.
Okay.
I'm thrilled that Prop 28 passed. Now, how do we get school districts to follow the intent of the proposition? I had high hopes that teaching assistants would be brought into our schools and paid. It seems the administration has other ideas for the money.
All right. So one thing that I will chime in on, and any of our team members that would like to also feel free to, we will have a workshop or a breakout. Let me make sure that I'm correct. It's a workshop we'll be doing specifically with Create California called Advocating for Equitable Arts Education with Prop 28. And that's going to be at the summit on April 16th. So we'll have more information through that workshop, but also that is a big conversation that a lot of people are having, and I think there's tools that are being developed, but anyone that wants to hop in from our team that can answer that.
I can touch on that briefly.
Okay.
One, I just wanted to answer Sarah's question. There is a press launch that's being planned for, I believe, March 30th in Santa Monica. So stay tuned for that. And then in terms of Prop 28 implementation, that's really Create California is really working on that. We're going to be collaborating with them on our policy priorities and talking points with legislators throughout April. And I'll touch on that a little bit more when we talk about Advocacy Month in this webinar. But Create California is really, we'll put a link in the chat. They're really leading the charge on those implementation issues, and will be part of kind of our advocacy conversation throughout April as well. Thank you for asking that.
And I'm just going to put the breakout for our summit, the breakout Prop 28, just the description, so that you have a little bit more information. And I know that Create California has a toolkit specifically for implementing Prop 28, so we can also share that in the chat. I'll find it, or one of our team members will find it.
Oh, cool. January's talking about what they're doing in Alpine County. Great. In the chat.
Oh, right. Oh, was that?
I was just going to say, if we're at a lull for questions, shall we go on to Tracy's presentation? Because we'll have another Q&A session at the end.
Yeah,
So
I
if you
think
have
so.
questions as we're going, you can go ahead and put those in the chat, in the Q&A as well.
That sounds good.
Great. Great. All right, then I'll have LT fire up the next slide. And while he's doing that, everyone get their hands ready for a group drum roll at your desk. Okay. April is also Advocacy Month, because April strategically is a really important month in terms of the cycle of budget negotiations in California. Next slide, please. May is when the governor issues his or her at some point revision of the budget, the January budget. And so April is really a key time to be, one, circulating this conversation, this discourse around the value of the arts through media and locally and statewide, and two, to meet and connect with your legislators. And we support two different ways of connecting with state legislators this year. One is Advocacy Day at the Capitol. Meet us there on April 17th. More information on that. Or we have a DIY legislator visits toolkit. And if someone could put the find your legislator in the chat, if you just want to take a quick look and see who your state legislator is and be thinking about them as we go into a little deeper dive on legislator visits. Dun, dun, dun. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the goal of the legislator visits are layered. One is to empower ourselves to build those relationships. California Arts Advocates, our lobbying arm, really drives this whole program and provides resources and tools to help you do this essential advocacy work. And I will say, I participated for the first time 3 years ago, and I was really struck, and that's when we were doing them on Zoom, how easy it was, how fun, how much legislators and their staff already were thinking about the value of arts and culture because of the previous years of work that so many of you have been doing in changing this conversation, and how open they were, and how many of them felt connected deeply to arts, culture, and creativity in their own very personal way. So I just really encourage, if you've never met with legislators and shared your unique perspective with them, it's fun, it's easy, and it's incredibly impactful. And through this, we're also educating them, giving them your perspective from their district about the issues and the impacts, and coming to them with solutions around policies and funding that's needed to strengthen the creative sector. And we love to activate the state to ensure that legislators across the state are engaged, especially those on key committees. And we provide that in the toolkits, the legislator visit toolkits, where you can see, do my state representatives sit on any of these budget or arts policy committees? And folks and representatives from across the state are engaged in arts and culture funding and policy. So it's really important to have all parts of the state participating in this conversation. Next slide. And if we could share, this is Speaker Emeritus, former Speaker of the Assembly, Anthony Rendon from Assembly District 65 in the South Los Angeles area. If we could click and see what he has to say in terms of advice for arts advocates.
The advice I would give to arts advocates is the same advice I give to any advocate, but with a slightly different spin. It's a huge state, 40 million people. When I'm in Sacramento, I wake up every day. I'm 400 miles from my home, 400 miles from my district. The best thing you can do as an advocate is to make whatever issue you're talking about seem like a local issue to that legislator. If you go to visit Blanca Pacheco, who's from Downey, and say, hi, I'm from Downey. This is what we do in your city. These are the kids that we have an impact on. If you come to me and say, I'm from Linwood, I'm from Southgate, we recognize that. We recognize that sense of immediacy, that lack of abstraction, how direct it is to people living in our district. I think that's incredibly important for arts funding. I think it's incredibly important in general.
Thank you. Next slide. So a little bit more about Advocacy Day. It has 3 parts. One is a really energizing and fun rally with arts champions, whether professionals in our field and artists or state legislators take the mic and get everybody all fired up. And then we parade over to what's called the swing space, the office spaces where legislators and their staffs work around Capitol Park. And then we have the legislator meetings. And California Arts Advocates handles scheduling all the meetings and providing a toolkit and resources. We organize folks in groups. We identify captains who are going to make sure that those group members connect ahead of time and kind of share their unique perspectives, so you can organize your conversation ahead of time. And we'll have talking points and background information, etc. And we also have several types of training to support folks in this work. Next slide. And then the DIY toolkit download has all those resources and more. And we encourage folks you can schedule meetings in person in district, or you can schedule them on Zoom. It's the same process. We provide scheduling contact information for each legislative office and a template for requesting a meeting, and then all the tools that we use in Advocacy Day for organizing your meetings, organizing talking points, which will include a little bit of background information and specific legislative asks, which we'll go into later in the conversation today. And the guide to successful advocacy, which is a great resource to use anytime if you want to build relationships with your local elected officials, et cetera. Those all come in the toolkit as well. Next slide. And this is just a snapshot of what the different parts of the toolkit and how it supports in scheduling the meeting, getting ready for your meeting, how to conduct a really successful, productive meeting, and how to follow up and build on those relationships. Next slide. And we want to support these efforts, get you ready with support through 3 methods this year we're offering. One is an advocacy training next week. We'll take a deeper dive into the budget situation, strategies, and specific goals and policies that we are advocating for. And that's kind of a really important part of the legislator meetings is one, educating them on the impact and issues, but then giving them an action to take. So the talking points include specific asks, and we'll go into a deeper dive into those bills and regulatory changes or and goals in the advocacy training next week. And then also offering every Friday, starting this Friday, a drop-in office hour, have lunch with me and other advocate leaders and get your questions answered, talk about strategy, whatever you want. It's an open-ended conversation, folks, to support anybody participating in either Advocacy Day or their DIY, setting up their own legislator meetings. And then at the summit, for the folks that are attending the summit and will be at the Capitol on Advocacy Day, we'll also have our brown bag lunch. We'll have our own room with advocacy leaders, Abe Flores from Create California and Ricky Abeles from Arts for LA to answer any questions and get folks ready and have them feel prepared and organized and ready to have a really good time. So those are the supports. And of course, you can always just reach out to the field engagement team, myself or Jenica Brisby, for answers, get questions answered or any kind of support you need. Next slide. And just to give a little background on this year's advocacy, the context with the budget, there's a $73 billion projected deficit. The governor issued a January budget. So far, his January budget, and no art funding was touched there in terms of the CAC funding and Arts in the Park, et cetera. And then the Senate just released their shrink the shortfall budget, and still no arts funding touched there. And then the Assembly will be issuing their budget as well. We'll see what happens. 2,100 bills have been introduced this year, down 500 from last year, and we're scanning them for any relevance to our field and to arts and culture workers and the issues that you all face on the ground. And the big message that we've got that has come down from the governor's office and from the leadership in both houses is no new spending. And what that's meant for us is that it's unlikely we will be asking for increase funding or new program spending this year, because we don't have legislative champions. The legislature's having to be very very careful about what they're asking for in terms of budget requests this year. But we've got a lot of great groundwork to do. And there's also some important leadership changes in terms of leadership of key committees and within the Senate. And these are folks that we're actively working to make sure to connect advocates with, so we can get them up to speed real quick and give them the tools they need to support our sector. So some of our strategies will again be keeping an eye on those budget as they roll out the next budget, and then socializing and educating this year. We and analyzing specific bills that touch our sector, and having specific asks and recommendations related to those. And a lot of the messaging that we're going to be working with is not we need money, all that. It's no, we are underutilized. We deliver these impacts on our own backs often, underpaid, underinvested in, and that we need to sustain investment in the innovative one-time programs that have come out over the past couple of years in response to COVID, et cetera. Next slide. And we'll have time for some questions for these as well. And some specific legislation and issues that will be focused on this year is protecting the baseline funding that's going to the California Arts Council, and socializing the need to increase that funding to at least $1 for the arts. Right now, at $26 million for 40 million people, California is spending 67 cents per person on arts culture funding. That ranks us 36th in the nation in per capita spending. So we've got a really powerful story to tell about that. And if we can't ask for an increase this year, we're certainly going to make legislators aware of what is being undercut by not investing in local assistance grants that come out to our communities. And we're also going to be paying very close attention to the implementation, protecting the funding that's been put aside for the Performing Arts Equitable Payroll Fund, SB 116. So far, that has not been touched in any of the budget, and we want to keep legislators informed and educated on the importance of the performing arts recovery and investing in the small, medium sized theaters through this program to keep them and that workforce going. And then arts education items. Create California will be updating us on specific recommendations for Prop 28 implementation advocacy. There's a bond issue that's coming forward, and Senator Allen has issued a piece of legislation to update the VAPA standards, the visual art and performing arts education standards for the state, to include media arts. And then there's some interesting legislation around artists and public works. AB 2720 from Assemblymember McCarty is proposing 1% for art in public capital projects, state building projects, et cetera, similar to what we do in cities, and locally 1% for the arts. And then also addressing some issues at the Department of Industrial Relations, where artists, muralists, conservators working on public works, there isn't a proper classification for them within the Department of Industrial Relations, which is adding to pretty crazy insurance requirements, things like that. So there's some regulatory fixes that we can be focused on as well. And then there's ticketing bills related to ticketing costs and AI, some of which overlap with arts and culture, and we'll be paying attention to those and possibly making some specific recommendations to legislators related to them. Next slide. Okay, cool. Yeah, through a lot of, anyone have any questions, comments that they'd like to put in the Q&A below? Okay. Popping that open.
Julie, I see one here from Anna, and she asked, or can you please specify which AI bills CA for Arts Advocates is considering pushing forward?
Thank you for that question, Anna. There's actually a lot of AI bills this year. And so I don't have the specifics on the ones that we'll be commenting or making recommendations on for this meeting, but we will have that in the training next week. That's a great question. And I can follow up with you as we examine those and decide which ones we're going to take action on. Any other questions?
Oh, yep, there's,
You got it.
oh, just thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Any questions about the summit too, or any of the toolkits? Let's advance to the next slide, and folks still have time to ask questions. So I just wanted to make folks aware, if you aren't already, that members really fuel this work, especially for California Arts Advocates, which is the 501c4, the lobbying organization, which really is not eligible for traditional grants and such. And of course, Californians for the Arts, and with our focus on developing or growing individual advocacy capacity within individuals and groups and increasing connectivity across the state. It's really important that our programs remain free and accessible to all, and members who support us make that possible, and we really appreciate you. And if you haven't become a member yet, we really hope you'll consider taking that leadership step within our work. We'd appreciate that. Yeah, that makes sense, Andrea. Andrea is reflecting on wanting to digest some of the material presented. Great, great. And the training, the advocacy training next week, will go, I would share that link in the chat again, and we'll take a deeper dive also, just kind of reflecting on some of the amazing achievements that we've accomplished over the past several years together as well, and really kind of the building on that work that will be happening in April this year. So, but just kudos to everyone who's been engaged and doing what they can. We've really accomplished a lot over the past couple of years, and we'll reflect on that in a little bit more detail next week. Oh, and a thank you to our sponsors and supporters. Looks like there's a couple new.
There's the press launch that's announced so far is on March 30th in Santa Monica. There is no registration required for those events. And I'm sure we will post on social the details as more come out. There's also one in San Diego on April 5th. But if you are not already, be sure that you're following our social media, because Eddie is great about getting announcements about all of these events up there.
And the launch events are really organized in partnership with local folks. So plans are still being developed, et cetera. But I suspect we can share as much as information as we have in the follow-up email. We'll share what we know so far when that follow-up email goes out.
There's also, I believe, one up in the Humboldt area on April 13th. But again,
Gotcha.
we'll give you all the details in the follow-up.
And folks, also feel free to create your own arts, culture, and creativity event. Invite your legislators to your venue or your shows or programs. They generally will be in district the last week of March. That's when they're breaking. Some of them don't don't work locally during that time. They do some vacationing, but also connecting with their staff and inviting the staff to see your work and have their staff is just as powerful and important. They really lean on their staff and their staff's expertise, and so feel free to engage your local and state legislators in celebrating Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month with you.
Hattie, you'll get an email with a link to the recording of the webinar and access to the slide deck and some other juicy resources, I'm sure.
Yeah. And great. Thank you. All right. Should we give a last call on questions? Another minute or so? Yeah, staff is key. You're right, Brian. Staff members they lean on the expertise of staff members, and it's great to meet on the local level with staff that work either in economic development, as well as the folks that have the arts and culture portfolio. Yeah, they will get into the weeds. Good, yeah, good note. Nefesha or Eduardo, either of you want to have any closing statements for everybody?
No, I was just going to hop in and say thank you so much for sharing what you shared and your expertise when it comes to Advocacy Day and all things arts in California. So thank you for sharing that. And I would just say thank you to everyone for joining us today. If you have any questions or, after you stew on the information that's been shared, please feel free to contact us. We'll quickly get back to you and share out everything that we possibly can to support your work.
Yes, and thank you for tuning in or watching the recording later. Thank you for downloading the social media toolkit. Remember, artwork is real work, hashtag. Also, hashtag ACCM 2024. Thank you so much. And let's get to it, this ACCM.
Yeah, and thank you too to Terry and LT on the back end, just making sure that everything is taken care of in the chat and the slides. Really appreciate our teamwork here, and we continue to do this work to bring the arts and continue to bring funding to the arts and bring the arts to our communities that so desperately need it.
We look forward to seeing what y'all make happen, and please send us pictures, like use the tagging in social media, etc. And just let's stay connected through this month and all the magic that we'll make happen together.
Excellent. Artwork is real work, and we will see you all probably virtually, and if not virtually, then hopefully in person in Sacramento in April and throughout the month of April in various places. So thank you all for joining us, and check us out online, and we'll be in touch for sure. We'll share these slides also. And I think it's a wrap.
Yay.
All right, excellent. Great job, team.
I'm going to go ahead and end. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks, LT.
Terry.